All right, in this video, we're going to talk about how to identify the domain and range of a function. And we might see a function given to us in a table, in a graph, or a set of ordered pairs. So we're going to talk about examples of each type. But first, let's talk about what is domain and what is range. So remember, a function assigns an input to an output. So the domain is the set of all the inputs of a function. And the range is the set of all the outputs of a function. So really, if we're given a table of values, remember, my inputs are my x's. My outputs are my y's. Really, the only thing I have to be careful of when I'm putting down my domain and range is first, I don't get them switched. And second, that if I see a number listed more than once, I don't write it down twice. And I write the numbers in order from smallest to largest. So, domain. Domain, use some different colors here. Domain are all of my x's. And what we do is we just write it with a set of curly Q brackets like this. We just write the numbers with commas between them. That's it. That's my domain. My range is the set of all of the outputs, or in this case, all of my y's. So I write those numbers down in order from smallest to largest. And that's my range. They're all different numbers, and they were actually in order from smallest to largest in the table to begin with, so it wasn't too difficult to get that done. So next one, domain, all of my x's. I just list them. I don't see an x given more than once. My range, all of my y's. I do see some that are the same. 2 2's, 2 3's, and 4. So I'm not going to write 2 down twice. I'm not going to write 3 down twice. So that's my range, 2, 3, and 4. This last one, domain, all my x's. Those are all different numbers. My range, all the same number. So when I write that down, I'm not going to write 4 down 5 times. I'm just going to write it once, and that's my range. So a table of values in writing domain and range, that should be pretty straightforward. Your x's, write those down. Y's, write those down. But since you're matching to multiple choice options, or I guess you might be doing some fill in the blank, but just make sure the numbers are in order from smallest to largest, or be, of course, looking at your options and matching it with your options. Now from a set of ordered pairs, remember a set of ordered pairs is pretty much the same thing as a table of values, just written in a little bit different way. So my domain is going to be all of my first numbers. So the ones that I circled in red, the first numbers of each point, that's my domain. I'm going to write them in order from smallest to largest. Then I look at my range, 1, 1, 0, -1. When I write that in order, what's coming first? Not 1, but -1. -1 is smaller than 1. Then 0, and I see 1 twice, +1 twice. But again, I don't write that down 2 times, but just once. This next one, domain, first numbers. Write those down in curly Q brackets. They're in order, 2, 6, 10, and 14. And my y's, 2, 8, 12, and 16, those are all different numbers, and they are in smallest to largest order. Last one, my domain, all the first numbers in order. And my range, if I look, or my y's, those are all the same number. And remember, just like I did when it was in the table form up above, I just write the number once, not 4 times, but once. Okay, so that's domain and range from a table and a set of ordered pairs. Hopefully, it'll be straightforward and easy for you. The ones that are tricky are the graphs. So when I look at a graph, where are my x's? On a grid like this, my x's are left and right. Where are my y's? Or actually, let me see. I should use the same colors for the same thing on this one. So domain, I was using red. So my domain is left and right. My x's are left and right. My range is up and down. My y's are up and down. So what we're going to do this time is we're not going to write a list of numbers because these are not individual points. This graph is not isolated, separated points. We'll do that one next. It's a solid line that includes all or a lot of numbers starting at one and ending at another. So here's what I do. I look at the graph. If I'm going to look at domain, I look at the endpoint and I draw a line to the x-axis with both. And then this here, the x-axis, that is my domain. Now if you remember when you were doing inequalities, compound inequalities are where you have a number, symbol, x, symbol, number. Your smaller number goes first and then your larger. Now what depends on whether you have the less than symbol or the less than or equal to depends on whether the circle is open or closed. Well, since these circles were closed, I'm going to have the equal to. So what number does it start with? It starts with -5. What does it end with? +5. That is my domain. Those are the x's, the left and right part of the graph that it covers. Now I'm going to do something similar for the range, but instead of drawing the endpoint to the x-axis, I'm going to draw it to the y-axis because my range are my y's. And then this here, that's my range. Where does it start? This is -5. Where does it end? This is +4. So -5. And it's really easy. It's really tempting to write x here because that's what we did for domain. But remember, range is y, not x. And it ends at 4. So that's my domain and range for a graph. It is certainly much trickier than it was for a table or set of ordered pairs, but you can certainly do it. You just have to remember, okay, domain are my x's. Think about what are the x's? What's the horizontal left and right part of the graph that's covered? Whew, just sneezed. Had to pause the video so you didn't hear this loud sneeze over the speakers. Okay. This next graph are just a set of isolated points. Now, I would say there's a couple of different ways that you can do this. You can take each point and write down the ordered pair. So for this first one, this is the point -5, 5. This next one is the point 4, 1. -4, 1, I'm sorry. This is the point -2, -3. The point 1, 2. Point 3, -5. In the point 4, 4. And then like we did on the previous page, take all of your x's, those are my domain, write them in order, and then my range, looking to see if I have the same. Nope, those are all different and I need to write them in order. So the smallest one is -5, then -3, then 1, this is 1, 2, okay, yeah, then 2, oops, nope, then 1. I had a brain fart here for a second, then 2, then 4, then 5. That's my range. That's one strategy. To write down the ordered pairs and to look at the x's, that's your domain, look at the y's, that's your range, put them in order. Another strategy would be something similar to what I showed you in the previous one. Take each point, go down to the x-axis for the domain, go to the y-axis for the range. Domain, range. Actually, let me do this to kind of clean it up a little bit so it's not so cluttered. So you can see the strategy. Okay, let me try that again. All right, so domain. What happened? My blue disappeared. I'll just use purple. Range, domain, range, domain, range, domain, range, domain, range. Oop, oop, oop. Totally did that wrong. Range, there we go. Domain, range. And then if I look at all of my red points and I start at the left, they're in order from smallest to largest. So -5, -4, -2, 1, 3, 4. Which is exactly what we have here in our domain written down there. And then I look at my range starting with the point farthest down to the bottom. That's -5, -3, 1, 2, 4, 5. Like that. And it's in order. So that's another strategy that you can use. Okay, let's talk about using that strategy for this third graph. So my domain, I look at the first part of the graph on the left, and I draw down to the x-axis, and then the last part of the graph down to the x-axis. But there's something that's sneaky here, trying to get me a little messed up, is there's an open circle at this first part. So when I draw down to the x-axis, I'm going to do an open circle. So this graph is covered everywhere starting from -5 to 5, but not including -5. So what does that look like? Looks like a less than symbol without the equal to. And there we go. That's my domain. Now my range is so easy, it's hard. If I look at this point and draw to the y-axis, and this point draw to the y-axis, I get the same exact point, 3. The range, my output, my y's are 3 for the whole entire graph. So how do I do that? Since it's just a single number, we write it inside curly Q brackets. That's it. Okay, let's do domain here and domain and range on this one. So look at the far left part of my graph, draw that up to the x-axis. It's a closed circle, so I'll do closed circle there. Far right of my graph, it's an open circle, so I do an open circle there. This is my domain. Starts at -5, closed circle, open circle, ends at 6. My range, filled in circle, starts at -6, goes up to 4. So this here is my range. So starts at -6, remember to use y, ends at 4. That's my range. Okay, so these are certainly way harder than the tables and the ordered pairs, but they can be done. Just make sure you get your domain and your range in the right order. Domain are x's, range are y's. So let's do this one. Left side of the graph goes to 4, right side of the, -4. Right side of the graph goes to +4. So that's my domain. Both closed circles, so both have the equal to. Then my range. This is where I have to think a little bit more about my graph. Because if I just drew this endpoint here to 2 and that endpoint to 2, I'm actually missing a part of my graph. Because there's a part of my graph that goes all the way up here to +2. So my range is actually from -2 to +2. So the left and right part, the endpoints are always going to get you your domain. But think carefully about your range, especially in a case like this. It's the up and down part that the graph covers. But look at the y-axis to determine what that is. Okay, I'm going to use this strategy for this one. Each point, domain, range. Domain, range. Domain, range. Domain, range. It's on the x-axis and the y-axis. That's 0, 0. Domain, range. Domain, range. Let's make sure there's not something. Oh, yep, there was one hiding there. Domain, range. So I'm going to look at the red dots on the x-axis and the purple dots on the y-axis to list my numbers. And if I start on the x-axis left to right, I'm going to have them in order. So I go -5, -4, -1, 0, 2, 3, and 5. Those are all my x's. Then I look at my range. I start all the way down here at -7. Then -2, 0, 3, and then 6. See, when I do it this way too, I'm not going to list my answers more than once, because this one here and this one here, there were 2 points that went to that range, went to that y value. And since I only have that one number circled on my y-axis, I just wrote it once. So this strategy can help you with that too. So domain and range, tables, and ordered pairs, hopefully that'll be easy questions for you. The graph, you'll probably have to slow down. Might have to try to write some things down on paper, think in your head. But think, domain, x-axis. What part of the x-axis is covered by your graph? Then range, y-axis. What part of the graph or what part up and down is covered by your graph?